All right, so welcome everybody to, I guess we could say this is an advanced conversational hypnotherapy strategy. We are going to be focusing on what I call the emotional trance method. Now, for everybody that's here, you've obviously just gone through the advanced conversational hypnotherapy program. And for anyone watching this as part of the Udemy program, I highly recommend, alongside with this program, you go and check out our complete conversational hypnotherapy program, where I really break down spotting unconscious moments, because this is a big part of this method today. But if you're familiar with my work and the way that we do things, that should be fairly straightforward for you. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of hours, guys, we're going to focus on the emotional trance method. We're going to focus specifically on the unconscious moments in the context of emotions and sensations. So let me give you a bit of background on how this goes. So we all know that when we start to explore our client's problem, whether it be like a coaching session, a therapeutic session, we know the majority of times the people that have problems, it's going to be associated to some sort of emotion in the context of maybe something where they're feeling bad about it. There's some sort of pain, there's some sort of sadness, and it tends to link onto that problem. Because if it didn't, it wouldn't be a very emotional problem. So ideally what we're going to do is we're going to use the very problem they have and the sensation or emotion that's related to that problem. We're going to focus, which I'm going to show you guys how to do, focus their attention on it, which will disperse that emotion and start to give them a clearer understanding of their problem. Thus, we can break that thought loop. Does that make sense, guys? Just as an overview of where we're going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So secondary, what this does as well, it shapes the trance. It makes a client experience this thing we call hypnosis. Okay. Now, being that this is such a versatile technique, it does a couple of things. It can solve the problem. We're going to show you guys how to link what are called resources to it, or a learning experience. So, you know, the sensation they have in their chest, they're actually going to learn something from it, which will solve the problem for them, which I'll show you guys how to do. But secondary can actually be the gateway into trance. Okay. Now, we all know, looking at the very mechanics of hypnosis, if you look at something like, who's heard of the ABSU formula before? Who's heard of that? Okay. Well, if you're not familiar with it, I'll explain how it goes. This is really the framework of conversational hypnotherapy. So the A stands for attention. Okay. B stands for bypassing of the conscious mind. S stands for stimulate the unconscious mind. And the U is my favorite, which is unconscious moments. Okay. So by getting a client's attention somewhere, whether it be talking about the problem, or in this case, we're going to focus our attention on the emotion or the sensation they're having. This is going to bypass the conscious mind. It's going to confuse the conscious mind. And we know that in order to solve a client's problem, we have to get rid of that conscious mind. Otherwise, it just interferes. So attention, bypass the conscious mind. And by doing that, we're going to start talking directly to the unconscious mind, which is going to stimulate it. The more we stimulate it, the more the client's going to feel this emotion and this sensation. Then once we start seeing those unconscious moments, we're going to keep stimulating those things. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, a more advanced strategy to that, something I sort of put together, where we have the A, B, S, U, and I've added 2 more letters to that, which is the R, so R for rabbit, okay, and D. So the R stands for ratify the unconscious moment. And then the D stands for direct their attention towards a positive solution. That's the therapy component. And believe it or not, if you've ever done a full therapy session, which you guys have just come out the back end of that last 2 days or even 4 day worth of training, we did all those things without actually setting a framework. Okay. So all therapy from start to finish has in it the ABSURD formula. So we're going to concentrate and isolate on that one specific part, which is, what do we do with this unconscious moment? How can we have our client benefit from experiencing the unconscious moment? And how can we link positive resources to this unconscious moment? Does that make sense, guys? I need to write that in a book. That was actually pretty good. Okay. So pretty cool so far. All right. So let's do this really, really mechanically. Okay. We're not going to work on a problem yet. We'll get to a point where hopefully we can do some demos with you guys. We'll work on some real problems. So just quickly, I just want to show you how quickly we can take someone's attention away from where they are to something else. Okay. So a very mechanical way to do this is for me to just say, hey, everybody, concentrate on the feeling of your feet on the floor. whose mind instantly went there?
Yep.
Okay? And you would realize that the feet on the floor has some sort of sensation, but you weren't aware of that because you weren't focusing on it. Would that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So in the context of a problem, what happens to a client when we start talking about the problem? They're focusing on it. Okay, and we know once a client's in a problem, that's all they can really live. That's all they talk about. Their whole focus on that problem. And the reason we want to start there with the A part of the formula is because we know that the problem exists unconsciously. And we know by focusing on the problem, we're going to experience those unconscious moments because they come from the unconscious place. So our goal, like I said, is to, you know what, in order to really teach this, we will go through the full cycle. We will talk about a problem. It's probably the easiest way to do this. And then I'll show you guys how to transition from, okay, we've talked about the problem enough. Let's now focus on what the client is feeling. And I'll get you guys to associate some sort of feeling to the problem that you're having. Does that make sense, guys? Mm-hmm. So we'll do this mechanically again. We'll start from the real easy stuff and move into the advanced stuff. Who here would like to give this a go with me? Obviously, you want to talk about a real problem. I'll just set the context, guys. Sorry, Sherry, I saw you first and then I realized Andrew. So Sherry, I'll get you and then Andrew will come back to you. We'll focus on a real problem and then we're not going to solve it, Sherry. No, we might. But ideally, what I want to focus on, guys, is how can we start to create those unconscious moments for our clients? How can we have our client associate the problem to the unconscious moment? And how can we ratify that experience? Okay. So what I'll get everybody